Hey, Micah. Hey, congratulations on the runner.
Hey, thank you so much.
So tell me, how were you brought on board this ambitious project?
Well, actually, so it's kind of a funny story. I was at a bus stop across the street from Fox Studios in Los Angeles, and I called up a buddy and I said, "Hey, Joey, Joey Loomis, my co-producer." I said, "Hey, Joey, we should put together some stuff to show investors. We should shoot some action scenes. We both wanted to make an action movie." And so he said, "Well, why would we do that? Why don't we just make a movie?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so it was both of our first movie as a producer. He and I both have a lot of acting experience and different things, but we had never produced a movie. And so that set forth a long and arduous and really fun experience, an incredible journey that became The Runners.
So Joey had the script laying around for quite some time for the story.
Well, so actually I did. So Joey said, "Look, I'm going to come over and because I'm a writer, I've sold several scripts, and he said, we're going to go through all your scripts, okay? Let's just start looking at stuff, and we'll narrow it down and figure out what we want to do." And so we thumbed through all of my old scripts, and we landed on The Runners, and we felt like it was something that was doable on a modest budget. We felt like it was something we could pull off in Texas, which was a goal of ours because I'm from Texas, and I knew I could pull a lot of resources there. And so yeah, so we started working on it and retooling it, and I wrote it over the course of 2015, and we started shooting in 2016. We came back and shot more in 2017, and it's been in post-production and being sold ever since. So it's been a really long process.
Wow. So where did the idea came from for the runners? I mean, did you read like about a human trafficking story or something?
Yeah, it's interesting. I started hearing a lot of stories around the country, and as kind of almost silly as this sounds, the movie Taken, I had seen that movie, years before, and it really opened my eyes to the issue of human trafficking. And while I say it's cheesy because it's just like a big action movie, right? Like you don't typically think of those kind of movies as having like a deep message, but it really hit me hard, and I remembered that movie. And so when we were searching for a theme, I started seeing a lot of human trafficking popping up in America, and I started looking in Texas and found out that Houston was one of the top cities in the entire country for human trafficking. And so we said, you know what? Let's do this as if it's taken in the world of Friday Night Lights in a small Texas town. And so we started that process, and you wouldn't believe how many people emailed me and said, "Why are you bringing this here? This is not a problem here. This never happens here. What are you doing?" And then at the exact same time, we had people who were emailing us saying, "Thank God you're doing this because I was trafficked when I was a teenager. I've never told anybody. My husband doesn't even know. Nobody knows. Thank God. Thank you for doing this." And we had like multiple emails from Texas and several other states with people who were like just so excited for us to do this and shed a light on this issue because it's not just something that happens in third world countries. It's something that happens right here in the U.S.
Yeah, I understand that, it's hundreds of thousands of children who are actually human trafficked, but I I wasn't sure on how they actually pull it off. Did you have to pull out some research on this beforehand?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We did a lot of research. We talked to a lot of nonprofits. We partnered with a handful of nonprofits in the area where we filmed. We talked to a lot of nonprofits in Dallas, like Trafficking 911, and there's a great place in East Texas called Rahab's Retreat, and we talked to them, and they take in women who have been abused and who have been trafficked and things like that. And we used a lot of that information. We fictionalized a lot of it and used a lot of that stuff in the film. So it's like I said, it's very much like Taken in the world of Friday Night Lights, and a lot of the movie is based off of real things that have happened.
Absolutely. So, was it an easy decision between you and Joey to act in your own movies?
Yeah, Joey is a phenomenal actor. He's a great friend. He's just a good guy all around. He's multi-talented. Anything you want to do, you put it in front of Joey. If he doesn't know how to do it, he'll figure it out. He's fantastic. But he and I both wanted to build a project around ourselves that we felt like we really fit. and that we could help facilitate our acting careers. That was one of the fringe benefits. And the interesting thing about that is that I think both of us really fell in love with a lot of the other attributes that came along with making the movie. And we both still are passionate about acting, but since then I've directed 2 other movies, and I had never directed a movie before. I've produced tons of movies. I've already produced almost 10 films since we started shooting The Runners in some capacity or another. And so I really truly fell in love with both sides of the camera through the process.
Wow. So how did you guys decide on who's going to play Ryan and who's going to play Marty then?
I think it was pretty much decided from the get-go. I said, hey, I really feel like this character speaks to me, the lead guy of Ryan, and I think you have an incredible ability to be menacing and to be really tough. Joey's like a big buff dude, and so he plays a really great bad guy. He can be really tough, but he also can be really kind of kind and cunning, like kind of sweet and cunning. And so we just kind of naturally fell into those positions.
Wow. So in terms this, you filmed this since what, 2015, and now it's finally released. This must be a very big relief for you that you got distribution and everything.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. It has been, I can't even tell you. It's been an absolute whirlwind of an adventure for Joey and I both. And we couldn't be more proud of the cast and crew. This is an independent film that I can honestly, with all of my heart, I can say the acting in this film is like through the roof good. Like every single role, all the way down to the tiny supporting roles, we found these local people, and somehow, some way, we were able to pull them all together and get absolute gold out of all these people. And it was a really beautiful thing that was like the hardest work of our lives, but also just now that we know it's going to be out in a couple weeks, we are like, cloud 9. So yeah.
Now you mentioned that local people. Could you tell us where is local?
Yeah, so we filmed the movie in my original hometown of Hallsville, Texas, which is near Longview, Texas. Longview is famous for Matthew McConaughey and Forrest Whitaker and Neil McCoy. And Neil McCoy is the multi-platinum country singer who is one of our executive producers. He's also in the film himself. And so that's just about 2 hours east of Dallas. There's a bunch of little towns all around that area. And we filmed probably in 10 different little small Northeast Texas towns. And then we also filmed at the penthouse of the CNN building on Hollywood Boulevard or Sunset Boulevard. And just kind of like a church in North Hollywood. I mean, we were like all over the place.
Well, I have to admit, it is pretty green wherever you filmed that compared to where I live at right now. So
yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful there.
So how did you get the local actors to actually join in, or all the locals to become extras for your film?
Well, what we did is something really simple. We put out posts on Facebook, and we crashed and flipped a car in the middle of the street in this really small town. They came out and gave us a road closure. The paramedics and the fire department and the police came out. A tow truck came out and flipped the car for us. And we told people, hey, we're going to flip cars. We're going to blow them up. We're going to have, a football game in a movie. We need to fill a stadium. And so we start making all these posts, and people just start coming. And so we ended up having, I think it was like close to 500 extras in this one movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's talk about local support. You just became a local celebrity just because of this movie.
What's funny is it's so true. And like my co-producers, back in Los Angeles, they'll give me a hard time because, of course, nobody knows me in a giant city. But if I go to my small town, it's like everywhere I go, people are like, "Hey, you're that guy. You're that guy." And I've had people walk up to me at gas stations and ask for my autograph on the back of their receipts and stuff like that. I'm like, "Oh, like you don't want that."
What I wanted to talk about one of your co-stars, Nettie Leach, who plays Zoe. Where did you discover her, and how did she do? You think she did in the film?
Nettie did fantastic. I mean, she is that character is a linchpin for the entire film. It would live or die by her performance, and she absolutely knocked it out of the park. Nettie is a phenomenal young actress. This was her first leading role in a feature film. And we searched across the country. We had literally thousands of girls audition. We went through Actors Access. We went through agencies in Los Angeles, New York, Nashville, Texas, Chicago, and we could not find the perfect girl for this. And we actually found a young actress that had some pretty serious credits, and it ended up not working out. And so we parted ways with like 2 days before Joey and I left Los Angeles to go to Texas to start filming. Mm-hmm. And so we're 2 or 3 days out, and we have no lead actress. Okay. And so there was one other submission that we're like, we liked her, but we need to go back and look again. And that was Nettie. And so we went back, and the more we watched her audition, the more we fell in love with this audition. We're like, man, this is way better than we realized, And so, so we call her up, and we call her, it's like midnight. Okay. And we're leaving at like 2 a.m. We decided stupidly to drive through the night to get a head start going to Texas. Okay. We're loaded down with equipment. There's like 3 of us in the car, and like nowhere you can't even see out the windows. And here it is midnight, a couple hours before we leave to go shoot a movie. And we're calling a girl to ask her if she can star in it. And so I'll never forget, we're like all huddled around the phone. All the producers are huddled around the phone, and we ask her, and she's like, well, let me think about it. and we were like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And so she's like, I'll call you back. And so we she hung up, and we all just like stare at each other. We were like freaking out. And about 20 minutes later, she calls back. Now, mind you, it's the middle of the night. Okay. She calls back, and she's like, I'm in. And we just literally jump for joy. We're like screaming, jumping up and down, like we have a movie, So, so that was like the moment before leaving to go to Texas.
So she dropped everything in 48 hours and went to Texas to be on your production.
Yes. Well, and whenever we asked her to do it, by that time, it was like 2 hours before Joey and I left to go to Texas. So she had a couple days in there where she didn't have to be there for another 48, but we were 2 hours from leaving. So that's how close it was. Like, I mean, we're like right there, So yeah.
I'm gonna bring up another certain actor, Tom Sizemore, who's also in the film. Which just last night I Instagrammed that I was screening your movie, and a friend of mine said, "What is this? This is a Tom Sizemore movie. I have to watch this." Talk about how you managed to score the guy.
Yeah, so we needed a really strong actor, someone who was well-known, who could help sell the film, and that could really step into this piece and give it a lot of heart. And Tom is a guy who he throws himself into every role he plays. I mean, he is intense as a person, and I mean that in the best way possible. He's passionate and intense about everything. And so we, I was in charge of raising the money for the film and doing the contracts and negotiations and all the kind of the business side of things. And so it took some back and forth with the agents and that kind of thing, but we came to good terms. We landed Tom, and we had a blast with him. He does a fantastic job in the movie, and being around an actor who has done the caliber of work that he's done was amazing. It was kind of surreal sitting outside while the crew was setting up with Tom, and he and I are running lines, and I'm thinking like, all I can think is like, this guy's in Saving Private Ryan,
Yeah.
Like, and he's telling me, we're kind of just shooting the breeze, and he's telling me stories about working with Spielberg and working with, all these, De Niro and all these people, and I'm just like, wow, this is my first movie, and here I am with this guy, and it's just, what an incredible experience for a young actor,
So he came for just one day, right, on the production?
We had him for 1 day only. We shot in Sherman Oaks in Los Angeles, but we shot hard and heavy. We shot a lot of stuff in that 1 day. So he's in a pretty decent amount of the movie for being only 1 day on set. But yeah, we shot a lot.
Now, before I forget, I don't want to move on to the next topic, but before I forget, the one thing I love about your film is it has a wonderful score throughout the entire film. Who actually developed that score?
Okay, so you're touching on something that is one of my favorite parts of the movie too. That our composer's name is Eric Schroeder. I want to tell everyone out there in movie land, if you are producing a movie and you need someone who is not only going to become like your best friend and work their butt off for you, but someone who's going to come up with brilliant music, you've got to reach out to Eric Schroeder. I don't care if it's $1 million budget or $100 million budget. He is absolutely phenomenal. I've used him 2 more times since then, and I preach this guy everywhere I go to anybody who will listen. So yes, Eric Schroeder, ericschroeder.com.
Eric Schroeder. That's excellent. Now, one of the things is one of my favorite characters in the movie is the RV. RV is it, and where is it now?
So the RV we borrowed from an old kind of like family friend in this small town in Texas, and she sold it shortly after we brought it back to her. So I don't know. I don't know if there were some issues that came about through the course of filming or what, but coincidentally, it was sold pretty quickly after we gave it back. So.
Well, was it challenging to be filming in that RV because you guys have limited experience in filmmaking beforehand?
Well, it wasn't so much the limited experience part of it. For that, what happened was, it's Texas, and we shot in June, and we're talking 105 degrees, 98% humidity, and we are inside of an RV. And if you want to capture good sound, you've got to turn everything off. So you've got a generator way, way far, running a line into the RV for power, but you've got no AC, you've got no engine, nothing like that, right? So I remember one day we are shooting a scene of a character who is standing up near the front of the RV. And so the camera is further up near the front of the RV. So basically, I'm standing behind the camera over, like I'm stuffed up into the windshield actually, and I've got like one leg up on the dashboard, the other leg is like standing on the ground, and the DP's backed all the way up to my chest, and he's got the camera, and I'm looking at the monitor, and he's looking at the other monitor, and I'm telling you, never in my life have I been so hot and miserable. But I at one point I literally had sweat, like not dripping, but pouring off of my nose, and it was just falling right onto the DP, and I was just like, sorry. What can you do?
Well, it doesn't seem like you regret the experience, because it was all worth it in the end.
Oh yeah, yeah. And every time you make a film, I've heard some of the top directors in the world say this. Every time you make a film, you learn 1,000 new things. So you feel like you kind of pay your dues. You've done those shoots where it was 105 inside of a closed RV and that kind of stuff, and there's a certain sense of pride that comes with getting through that and the movie coming together and being really good. Because if it was all lush and easy and shiny like people think Hollywood is, then you wouldn't be that proud of it.
That's true. Well, I do want to talk about your last third of the film, which is the final combat, which is huge. I mean, that is action packed. Tell us on how you pulled that off.
Well, it was a lot of time and effort. It was a lot of planning because we shot some of those scenes the first time, and then we had to go back for reshoots because they didn't work. So we had to kind of figure out, how do we want to do this, and we don't want to go back and just do the same thing. We want to make this a lot better. A huge part of it was the local support again. I mean, we had probably 50 cartel members who were just random local people who were willing to wear their own black outfits, again, in the 100+ weather, right? And come out in all black, long sleeves, pants, boots, mask, and everything, and then run around all day long, action cut, and just sweat to death just so they could be in the movie. And most of them, you don't even see their faces. So that kind of support is pretty rare. But a big part of it was just Joey and I putting our heads together and saying like, okay, how can we make all of these different storylines and all these different things come together at one time and make it all make sense and make it entertaining? And so we did our best. And I think it turned out pretty well.
I think so too. Excellent. So what was the most challenging thing for your first experience, this film as your first experience? What was the most important lesson you learned?
Oh my goodness. Again, like I said, 1,000 things on every movie. So it's hard to pinpoint just one specific thing. One thing I learned as a producer is I learned about just people and dealing with different personalities and dealing with different, this actor may be a certain way, a certain personality. This crew member may be completely opposite. And as a producer who's got to hold the whole thing together, you've got to be the glue, right? And so you've got to learn how to manage different people. And sometimes that means having a conversation. Sometimes that means not having a conversation and kind of skipping certain things. And that was an extremely valuable lesson that I took from this movie, and that has really actually helped me on future films recent films that I've done.
Well, let's start to wrap things up, because obviously you did more films after the Runners here. Talk about those films.
Yeah, so in 2018 we shot a Western called No Man's Land, and it came out last summer. It was #1 on Amazon in Westerns for about a week, which is kind of crazy because, again, it's a small film. But we were up against a John Cusack Western that came out the same day, and we were up against a Ethan Hawke and Chris Pratt Western that came out the same day. And somehow, miraculously, we were actually ahead of them on Amazon for almost an entire week before they kind of shot up past us. Then after that film, I just recently finished a thriller that we haven't announced yet, but we should definitely talk about that one a little later. It's in post-production right now. And then this fall, I have a sci-fi film coming up called Space Enemy that we're shooting in August. And that one is about a guy who is, his wife disappears, and she comes back home and something's not right about her. And he slowly starts to realize that she's not human anymore, and it becomes pretty intense. So it's a really kind of fun sci-fi thriller. And then in November, we've got a crime thriller coming up that's got a couple of awesome actors in it. It's got Chris Ralphie, who's one of my producing partners. He's from Chicago Fire, and he works for Disney and done a bunch of really neat things. Also, Kevin Sorbo's in the film. And Tohru Masamane, who was Shredder in the Ninja Turtles movie, Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles, and Constance Brenneman and a few other just fantastic actors, including my very own wife, Brooke Lyons, who's also in the Runners. Shout out, babe. Love you.
Wow, you certainly do actually keep busy. And ever since the Runners, you love the film production side. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I had a conversation recently with a good friend of mine who's a producer, and I said, you know what? I used to want to do nothing but act and write. And after making the Runners, I learned that I'm going to have certain passion towards a particular discipline on each film. It's not going to be that way all the time. And so there's some films where, I've got a script right now that I cannot wait to option to produce this particular piece. And I have no intention of acting whatsoever, and I might not even direct it. But man, I really want to produce it. And so it's just learning, okay, where do I fit in each project? And do I act and produce, or do I direct and write, or whatever that may be? So that's been a really fun experience.
One more question, just to wrap things up, because after taking consideration of all your different projects, because you did an action film, you did a sci-fi, you did a thriller, you did a Western. None of this is a specific genre. Why are you all over the place? Why do you love a diversity?
That is a really good question. I will tell you the spine that goes through all of those, the through line to those, is action. All of these movies have action in them. They all have crashes, explosions, fight scenes, suspense, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I like to call what we do action slash, because it's action slash whatever, action slash something else. And I don't know that I have made, I clearly have not made a huge Hollywood name for myself yet. So I am still exploring and saying, like, okay, what is my thing? Like, what am I going to be known for? And so I have this certain level of obscurity right now where I can kind of play in a lot of different genres. And then when one of them really hits, I can say, okay, this is what I'm going to do for a while. But right now it's fun to just play and do a lot of different stuff.
Well, it sounds like you have a great future ahead. The only area that you haven't covered yet is action comedy, and hopefully that's it.
I would love to. Let's put a script together.
Let's do that. All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Micah. Hey, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and congratulations once again for the runners.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, not a problem. Thank you. All right.